welcome to the MMA Fan Podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Stu and Blake.
How you doing, Kenny?
Good. How are you guys?
Yeah, good,
Very
mate.
good, mate. Thank you.
Appreciate your time today.
Of course.
Right. Well, I think the first thing we're going to ask is I want you to tell me about fight movies. And before we even get on to Embattled, I want to know about the fight movies that shaped you as a youngster, and if that had any bearing on you putting on a pair of gloves and joining a gym.
Oh, man. First of all, great question. Yes, I think about, this is something I think about a lot, the different things that shape us and what kind of leads us into what we do. And most certainly movies do that for people. And it definitely did that for me. I grew up with friends who loved martial arts movies and, war movies, like, the Chuck Norris movies, the Arnold Schwarzenegger movies, the Bruce Lee movies. So I that definitely had a strong influence on me. Whether it was my dad was pretty busy, but when we did, it was usually some kind of manly movie, I guess you could say. Whether it was the Clint Eastwood spaghetti westerns or with my brothers watching Kung Fu theater on the weekends. So the martial arts movies definitely shaped how I viewed things and had a big influence on me. And I definitely think that played a part on me doing what I did. But I do think that at the end of the day, martial arts needs to connect with you, and it certainly did that. Even as a young kid, I remember doing martial arts and it feeling like it was a religious experience almost. Nothing else mattered, nothing else was going on, and I felt like I was doing magic almost. It was just really fun for me. So yeah, I guess all of the Bruce Lee movies were huge. I'm trying to think. Of course, the Rocky movies. Let's see. There was a movie way back in the day called Force 5, where it kind of had some well-known martial artists. Joe Louis was in it. Who was the other one? Benny the Jet Urquidez was in it. So anyways, they had 5 expert martial artists and they were on some secret mission. It was a really cheesy movie, but I remember anytime it came on, it was just very intriguing to me. Jim Cotta was a movie that I used to watch a lot back in the day. It was like this Olympic gymnast who learned martial arts and had to invade some martial arts building. But anyways, just a ton. I can go on and on about the martial arts movies from, Bloodsport to whatever. But yeah, I enjoyed all of them. Yeah.
And from watching these iconic movies such as, you mentioned Rocky and things like that and Bloodsport, to then find yourself being the star of something and walking to that octagon and getting in that octagon and getting bloody like you've seen in them films. Did it feel like you was in a movie set at any given point when you had to kind of do that?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I have to admit, candidly, I was probably about to, pee my pants a couple times when I did. But after that, once you embrace it and you go, wait a sec, I wanted this life. This is what I do. This is what I train for. This is what I enjoy. Yeah, I remember just like the closer I'd get to the octagon, the closer I get to the cage, the better and more relaxed I would feel. And then I felt free. So yeah, I definitely, there were definitely times. First of all, there's a camera in your face, almost, from the time you're in your locker room to the time you're right about to fight. And it's literally right in front of you. So that's hard to ignore, the crowd, the fans. And yeah, it's funny looking back. It feels like a lifetime ago, but it is quite surreal.
So you mentioned your dad there, and you in my head have not the stereotypical kind of journey into MMA, because you know that stereotypical one is like, oh, there was someone that was brought up of really hard times, maybe their dad wasn't around or anything like that, and they found a gym and they found MMA. Your dad was a doctor. So he was probably thinking, oh, little Kenny, he's going to go and do his PhD. He's going to get a good degree. And, you know, he's just going to be set for life doing this really great job, you know. And then you turned around to him one day and went, I'm going to fight for a living. What was his reaction to that? And maybe both your parents, like how was their response to that?
Accurate. Yes, that's exactly what happened pretty much. I mean, my dad was a physician. He was a surgeon. Both my parents had come from Peru, and, you know, they had worked hard to get where they wanted to be, and they wanted a good life for me. A good life in their mind was not me fighting, you know, in a cage. You know, I went to college. I was lucky enough that they were able to pay for university, and you know, they expected me to continue that education and go on to law school. Didn't quite happen that way. I, you know, went a completely different route, and they were concerned first and foremost with me, you know, getting injured. And also, you know, we were talking about the movies earlier. Being a professional martial artist, like, that really wasn't possible unless you were going to, you know, teach or something at a school. But to be a competitive professional mixed martial artist, that wasn't a job, you know, not too long ago. So they didn't really get it. They didn't understand it. They thought it was a phase and it would kind of go away. That was their hope, I'm sure. But
are they still hoping for that?
They still think
it's just a phase. He'll get over it soon.
Exactly. So they didn't really understand it. And, you know, I don't think it was until, you know, because I was always my dad's son. Oh, you're Dr. Florian's son. And there was a time period where, you know, he was Kenny Florian's dad, and he's like, wait a sec, he's kind of doing something. He's actually doing something, and he's making it work. And he came to love it. And, you know, both my parents kind of eventually embraced it. But yeah, I don't have the typical, you know, journey of someone who kind of came from, you know, maybe not the wealthiest of towns, or, you know, maybe had some kind of, you know, unfortunate family life or whatever. I really can't claim that. And I think I just loved martial arts. It was kind of this thing that was embedded in my head. My dad also was a judoka. He came up doing judo all the way through medical school. And, you know, so he's partly to blame for that. He wanted us all to learn martial arts. And, yeah, it just really resonated with me.
I mean, you've carved out an incredible career for yourself post UFC as well. And one of the things that, you know, has led us to now, you know, we're watching movies being made about MMA is, you know, how this sport has become huge.
Yeah.
And to, you know, we're seeing in a world now of Conor McGregor's that are huge media personalities, which I think, you know, the UFC was so good at working that kind of side, the outside of the octagon kind of personality. And I think that was very much kickstarted with the likes of The Ultimate Fighter. Yeah. And so with that in mind, and you know, your journey, you know, through that show and such, was you always aware of trying to kind of put across Kenny Florian outside of the octagon as well, when you had an opportunity to, and to develop the, you know, and let people inside to kind of know who Kenny Florian was?
You know, I'd be lying if I said that was like a goal of mine. I think it was something, it was kind of like a necessary evil in some ways. That's how it started anyways. It was more like, hey, you know, the UFC would contact me. We need you to do this thing for us, or we need you to do this. And, you know, eventually I realized that it was good for me, you know, that maybe as uncomfortable as I was doing certain things like that eventually it would allow people to connect with me, just like the Ultimate Fighter did. And hey, wow, these people kind of like me, or like what I did, or connected with me, or maybe they hate me, or whatever it was, but maybe they want to see more of me in some ways. And eventually I was able to kind of reap the rewards of that in some ways, of, you know, people wanting to see me fight, or people wanting to go to, you know, a seminar that I was doing, or an autograph signing, or whatever that was. And, you know, eventually seeing that pay off, I think you see the value of it. And, especially early on where, again, for me, I was like, who's going to watch The Ultimate Fighter? This is crazy. Like, how is this going to work? And it ended up blowing up. You kind of see that's the business side of things that I think you need to do as a fighter. You don't have to, but you may not reap the rewards of that later on down the line. If you want to be I guess a pay-per-view draw or, a fighter that people want to see, you might not be able to make as much money in the sport. So it's finding that balance. Of course, you don't want it to distract from your training, but being able to balance that certainly helps, and very few can go the route of a Conor McGregor who can really do it all. And, there's been some setbacks because of that in some ways, but there's no question that it has helped his career, and he's become one of the wealthiest athletes on the planet because of it.
Yeah. You mentioned you mentioned Conor there. Do you have an opinion on how you think that because there's a big fight coming up, obviously, between him and Dustin, that trilogy? Do you have an opinion on which way you think that's going to go, or is it too early to tell?
It's hard to tell because, Conor does have a lot going on. I think I'll say this, and this is no disrespect to Dustin Poirier because he's such a fantastic fighter himself. Yeah. But I do think if Conor McGregor, the mixed martial artist, fights, he will win. If Conor McGregor, the guy who thinks he's just going to knock anyone out, goes in there to fight, then Dustin Poirier will win. I think one of the hardest things as a fighter is understanding who you are and what you're good at. And I think that, in my opinion, Conor McGregor is best when he's letting all of his weapons fly, when he's allowing for his creativity to enter inside the octagon and for him to get into that flow state and do what he does best. Let all the weapons go. Don't just force a knockout or think that you're a boxer now or that you're this big knockout puncher. Can Conor McGregor knock people out? Absolutely. But when you go back and look at what Conor does best, he is best in a counter punching role. When he's allowing you to come forward, he's slipping shots and he's catching you with something that you don't see. That's where I feel he's at his best. You look at the knockout of Jose Aldo, you look at, a lot of the big knockouts that he lands. Those are shots when people are kind of coming forward and he lands those shots. The ones against Eddie Alvarez, he gets you to miss and then he catches you. So that for me is prime Conor McGregor. When he's pursuing and coming forward and just looking for a knockout with his boxing, he's still menacing, but is he at his best? No. And I think that's where Dustin Poirier was taking advantage. He kept kicking the leg. And so it's tough to say, like, when you have tens of millions of dollars, how hungry are you to train? How hungry are you to go out there and beat up that guy and be willing to get beat up to get a result? How willing are you? And that's going to be a question mark, I think. In some ways, I hope that, Conor McGregor is able to find that again. I think he can. Will he? I don't know.
Well, another way to make the big bucks, if you get in tired of fighting, is become a movie star, Kenny. You've stepped up, mate.
Exactly.
How did this come about?
I was contacted by the producers at Embattled, and it came to be, a pretty cool opportunity. I enjoy being a part of that process and see it kind of all come together. I've had the opportunity to be on different MMA shows like Kingdom, which is on Netflix here in the States, and was on television for a little while. It was an awesome show. And I always, unfortunately, play myself. I'd like to play someone else besides myself. Being
I was going to ask you that. Do you want to go and do that? Like, have you done any acting classes or anything like that? Is that something you want to do? Yeah.
I did it. I was kind of a musical nerd in high school. From musical nerd to MMA fighter, it makes no sense. But yeah, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed that process. But I'd like to kind of play someone else besides myself. But at the same time, I take it as a compliment that people say, hey, you're a well-known personality or commentator. Why don't you come in and play yourself in this movie and add credence to to the plot, to the story. And it was cool to be a part of it. My buddy Tyron Woodley was a part of it as well.
Yeah.
And it was awesome to just see all the work that goes into it, like the fight scenes and the hours and hours that go into of doing the same thing over and over and over again, which I can appreciate as a mixed martial artist, where you have to do a lot of things over and over again. So, yeah, no, it gave me a lot of respect for both the people that are choreographing the fight scenes and the actors involved in it. So it was awesome to be a part of the movie. And Embattled, not only was it a great script, but it ended up being, an awesome movie that I truly enjoyed watching.
Yeah. And when you were doing those scenes, when you're commentating, what have you got for eye lines? Are you just kind of imagining the fight, or are they getting two runners to just kind of go at each other?
The cool thing was actually we kind of got to play it like it was a fight, like the actors and the fighters, were in the cage going through the scenes or doing it while we were commentating. So it was kind of, this back and forth. It made it more real for us. And yeah, it was pretty cool. And also they had real MMA fighters in there as well. Like there was a lot of guys, they filmed it in Alabama, and there were fighters from the same gym as Eric Anders that were in there. The SBG guys were in there. So they had a lot of pro fighters that are in there doing the scenes, going through the fight scenes again and again. So it was cool. It was really cool.
That's great that they did that for you, because there'll be some sets where, you're just like, right, the fight has actually happened, but you've not been on camera yet. And you're like, oh, that looks really good. Yeah, great. Or maybe you haven't even seen it. And then you get
100%.
onto set and they're like, hey, there's an X on the camera here. Can you just look at that and do all the reactions? So the fact that they got that, but I think in a way that kind of shows, because I think that, you watch the movie and you see you and Tyron, and obviously you've both got experience of doing this in a real fight situation anyway, which is obviously going to be very important to draw on. But the fact that they're doing that as well, you can tell in your performances that that it feels real. It feels like something's going on at the time.
Absolutely. In fact, I think at one point during one of the scenes, I won't divulge which one, but I remember actually getting emotional. As I was watching it, and I'm like in the movie. I'm like, what the hell's wrong with them? Like, are these guys just that good, or am I just like a wimp? Like, what's going on? But yeah, it was cool to see that process, man.
And I mean, I touched on it at the beginning that we're the sport has grown so much to the fact that there's movies being made about it now, with huge stars in it. And like, tell us a little bit about how you've seen, over the last 10, 15 years, the world of MMA just grow into something, spectacular.
It's really wild. I think that, the movies are getting onto it. And I think that people will always resonate with the ability to fight for so many reasons, right? I mean, you and we're all here because someone in our family line fought to survive, fought to keep going. And I think that is something that is always appreciated, even in losing, right? I mean, it's like Rocky in some ways became more of a star or more of a big movie hit because of his losses and an ability to persevere. And I think that is a quality that is very much appreciated and always has been and always will be. And I fear for what will happen when we don't appreciate those qualities. So I think that, I think that movies in general, they understand that, they know that, they know that people appreciate that. And of course, the appreciation of doing a skill under extreme pressure. I remember, when I was fighting, thinking about mentally the kind of hiccups that I would have during a fight, or the kind of fear that I would feel before a fight. And I knew I had to face that. You can't run away from yourself. And I think that for me, I was like, well, how can I deal with that? What kind of things can I do to help understand that? And I started reading a lot about special operations forces, guys that are in the military at the very elite levels, like the equivalent of your, British SAS or something, and reading those stories and understanding that it's like what I'm doing, I'm just getting in a cage. Their lives are literally on the line, or other people's lives are on the line doing what they do. And seeing that, it helped me to understand, like, okay, what I do is tough, but that there's levels, and understanding that fear and finding out how do I best compete and how can I best do that, I think helped me become a better person, a more relaxed person, a more patient person. It's something I work on every day. But if I can deal with someone who's trying to hurt me, who's a trained professional, then there's a whole lot of other things I can deal with as well.
You've got a rather nice looking T-shirt on there, Kenny. So what's been happening in your world then?
Yes, thank you. I've been doing commentary now for the PFL, the Professional Fighters League, and they hit me up, I guess somewhere in the middle of COVID, when that craziness was going on, and asked me about coming back to commentary, if I'd be interested in doing that for them and ESPN. And I thought it was a good opportunity to come back and do what I love to do. There's nothing like calling fights, whether in a movie or for real. and I love the format, that they do, kind of a playoff. It's more of a league where, they have 8 guys in each division, and they all kind of fight it out, and they have 2 fights, and the guys who accumulated the most amount of points go on into the playoffs, similar to how you guys have in football. So, it's been awesome. We have another fight coming up on Friday this week, and the heavyweights and the female 155 pounders are going at it. That will play out and reveal the playoffs for all the divisions. So excited about that. That's been a lot of fun. I've been doing that with Sean O'Connell and Randy Couture, and been having a blast.
So we've been seeing Brendan Loughnane doing well over there in the PFL.
He's killing it, man. Yeah.
And there was an interesting decision with Rory McDonald and Gleison Tebow recently as well.
Yeah.
So there's loads of drama there. It's not just the UFC available to people. There's places like the PFL and other organizations as well where you can get a lot of drama and a lot of fun watching it. One thing that I particularly see with, and I know you're a soccer fan as well, and you played soccer to quite a high standard. It's noticed me saying soccer.
Yeah, exactly.
To try and help the American.
It's not soccer, man. It's football. What's wrong with
you? Exactly. Everyone's going to be listening to this going, Blake, you've changed, mate. You've changed. But but one thing that the analysts and pundits, commentators get a lot in the world of football is the backlashes on social media from people that don't know what they're talking about and stuff. Now, and ex-pro footballers as well, they're getting this all the time. As a UFC PFL commentator and formerly doing work for the UFC as well.
Yes.
Do you ever have to deal with morons on social media that are saying you said that wrong, or you're calling the fight for the other guy? You're in the pocket of the company because you're saying this guy is doing well when I can see it's this guy. And these people are just armchair fans that don't necessarily know what they're talking about. Do you have to deal with that? And also, how do you deal with that kind of negativity on social media? Does that affect you, or have you found ways to kind of push that to the back of your mind and not give it any merit?
I've never had one criticism online. It's crazy. I do everything perfectly. I must no. Absolutely. Absolutely. Oh, you get it all the time. You get it all the time for sure. I think that, social media, it's interesting. Everyone kind of has a voice now, and everyone kind of has an opinion. I think early on in my career, when I first started doing things for the UFC, I think that at times it would bother me a little bit. But over time, I've come to realize that no matter who you are, no matter what you do, no matter what level you're at, perceived or otherwise, criticism's always going to come. And, I'm very willing to always learn and get better. I'm going to be my harshest critic more than anything else. So I just try to remind myself of that hey, listen to what people have to say, because there definitely can be some value there, but, just, venom or hate or, unwarranted criticism, it doesn't bother me anymore. Not these days. Now my skin is pretty thick, but I'd be lying if I said, early on it didn't bother me. Even, every once in a while it does bother me just because, there's so much education that needs to happen out there, and some people just don't understand it. It's like if, I know nothing about physics or math, and some expert in quantum physics is talking about something, at a high level, and I'm like, that guy's an idiot. What does he know? What's he talking about? It's like, Kenny, you don't know anything about that. Like, just let the guy talk. You may be right, but if you actually don't know, let the person, talk about it. So, anyway.
Well, we're aware that we're tight on time today, Kenny, and we really appreciate the time that we've got with you. Just lastly, your co-star and friend Tyron has got a very interesting fight coming up. So I'm going to ask you what your thoughts are on that, and then are we going to see Florian put the gloves on and fight a YouTuber or a retired boxer? What's happening? Are you going to be stepping up as well? Everyone's doing it, mate.
Oh man, you guys are killing it with the questions today. All right. Well, I'll say this. First of all, I am praying every day that Tyron Woodley trains hard and wins that fight. I'm excited for him that he gets to make a whole lot of money. And I think, is it Logan Paul that he's fighting? It's Logan,
Jake Paul.
right?
He's fighting Jake Paul.
Okay, Jake. Okay, I screw him up. Sorry.
Yeah.
So
I mean, who cares? I mean, we don't care about those fuckers.
Exactly. That's the real answer.
Yeah, exactly.
But no, Jake. He's tough. He can punch. He's dangerous. But I do think that a well-trained Tyron, a focused Tyron, a guy that wants to be in their fight should be able to handle business pretty easily. But they are someone that it's a fight. You got to take everyone seriously. That you could get hurt there. So I hope that Tyron does well and knocks him out. Would I get in there? No. I was talking to Sean O'Connell about this, and he was like, "Come on, man! Like, someone gives you $1 million." I'm like, "No." He's like, $10 million. I was like, "No." He's like, "What do you mean? You wouldn't do it?" I said, "No. I got into the sport. My goal, and maybe I'm an idiot, but I got into the sport because I really wanted to test myself against another trained mixed martial artist. And then I wanted to fight the best mixed martial artist that I could find and see what I could do. I don't see them in that light. And it's for me, for whatever reason, I never did it for money. I never did it for fame. Some extra money would be awesome. I'm not, like uber wealthy, where I'll be fine for the rest of my life. I need to work, but it's just something that's not interesting to me. I think if I did that, that's where I could potentially get hurt, because I'd be doing it for the money and not for because I want to do it. If that makes sense.
Absolutely.
Love
Absolutely.
that. That's the best answer, Kenny. Thank you very much, mate.
You guys are the best. Thank you guys.
Oh, Kenny, thank you so much. It's been
Have
an
a great
absolute
rest of your
pleasure.
day.